Most people at some point think about starting a business on the side. You're working, you're earning, but there's always that thought in the back of your mind, what if I could build something of my own? And for most people, the idea stays exactly there, in the back of your mind. Something you think about on the drive home or in the shower or over a beer with a mate. Every now and then, idea sticks. You start doing the research, you start crunching the numbers, you start thinking, maybe this one's actually worth pursuing. That's exactly where I was about a year ago. I come across a product category that looked genuinely promising. Mattresses. The margins looked strong. The logistics were much simpler than most furniture. And it was a space I was personally interested in. Health, wellness, sleep, recovery, that sort of stuff. When the idea starts feeling real, which is start researching and executing. Found ourselves a supplier in China, flew over, tested samples, brought them back to Sydney, slept in them myself. Quite liked it. Wife did too. Built the brand, built the website, uploaded the products and organized shipping to a third-party warehouse. And then I did what felt like the natural next step, which was committing to a full container order. Now, if you've never imported product before, or container is a real commitment, that's not a test order. That's capital deployed. That's pallets arriving at a warehouse. That's a bet on yourself that says, I believe in this enough to put serious money behind it. And when that container landed in Sydney, I remember thinking, this is it. We're ready. Product is here, website is live, listings are done. Let's go. Then Google suspended us. No ads, no traffic, no way to put this product in front of a single online customer. And suddenly I'm standing in a 3PL warehouse looking at a pallet full of mattresses that I've paid for sitting in Sydney, and I can't sell a single one of them. I thought that the product wasn't bad. I did my research. Website didn't look broken. My business was legitimate. So what was it? At first I thought it was maybe a technical issue, something we'd missed in the setup, something that could be fixed in a day or two. But weeks went by, then a month, then two. And the deeper we looked, the stranger it became. Because the problem didn't actually start when we launched a mattress business. It started about a year earlier with a completely different website in a completely different category. We just had no idea. About a year before any of this happened, we launched a website called Zua Living. The original idea was to sell furniture online. We built the site, listed some products, and even made a few sales. The more time we spent in the category, the less it made sense. Furniture had a huge number of SKUs, complicated logistics, and expensive shipping. Every step felt like we were managing complexity rather than building something with an edge. So we stepped away from it. The website went dormant. And at the time, we thought that chapter was finished. Fast forward about a year, mattresses kept coming back to my mind. The margins were attractive, the category was growing, and compared to furniture, the product range was far more manageable. So we decided to take the idea seriously. And this is where a decision that was made that, at the time, seemed completely logical. Instead of starting from scratch, we decided to repurpose what already existed. We took the old Zua Living website and rebranded it into Tuala. New name, new products, new category. But the same underlying domain, the same digital foundation. At the time, it felt efficient. Why build from zero when you already have something standing? Looking back, that single decision is probably the most important one in the entire story. The next step was product development. We went to China, visited factories, tested different mattresses, and started narrowing down what we wanted. We found a supplier we really liked. We brought samples back to Australia and started sleeping on them ourselves. Everything looked quite promising. Now at this point, the supplier was naturally going to ask us when we're going to move forward with the order and production. And to be honest, that's probably completely fair on their part. Their job is to manufacture products, secure more orders, so their business can keep running. Now, the longer a project sits undecided, the more uncertainty there is for them, but also for us. The pressure wasn't only coming from the supplier. It was coming from everywhere at once. We've already invested months into the idea. We liked the product. The category looked strong. The margins appeared attractive. And as someone building business on the side, there's momentum that builds. You start seeing what businesses could become. You also start imagining the future before you've fully tested the present. I think that's one of the most dangerous moments in business. Nothing is technically wrong. Nothing feels risky. In fact, everything feels like it's moving in the right direction. But that's exactly when emotion starts replacing objective risk assessment. The more time you invest, the more you need the idea to work. The more potential you see, the easier it has become to justify the next step. And before you realize it, you've committed capital before you validated the entire system. So we moved forward with the production order. A container was manufactured, the stock arrived in Sydney, and we put everything into a third-party logistics warehouse, a 3PL, which stores and ships products on your behalf. And honestly, using a 3PL was one of the better decisions we made. For most e-commerce businesses starting out, I think people probably take on warehouse leases sometimes far too early. We're paying a few dollars a week per pallet instead of locking in a list of overheads that we didn't really need. At this point, we thought we're ready. The product was here, website was live, photos were done, listings were uploaded, everything looked complete. What we didn't have was a validated sales channel. We just didn't know it yet. When Google suspended the account, our first assumption was that we made a mistake somewhere. Maybe something was wrong with the website. Maybe Google needed additional verification. Maybe we'd missed some documentation. So we started working through the checklist. We checked the product listing, everything looked fine. We checked the website, everything looked fine. We checked the business information, everything also looked fine. The products were real, inventory was real, the company was registered, the stock was physically sitting in a warehouse in Sydney. From our perspective, nothing looked unusual. So we submitted a review request and we waited. The review came back, guess what? Suspension remained. We made changes, double-checked everything, and submitted again. Same result. At this point, we were stuck. Because the strange thing wasn't that Google had suspended us. The strange thing was that we couldn't figure out why. Weeks turned into months, and every time we thought we'd found the issue, we'd fix it, resubmit, end up back exactly where we started. Eventually, we managed to speak to a Google account manager. She was helpful. She raised an internal ticket and asked her team to look into it. And surprisingly, even they couldn't immediately identify any obvious red flags. Now, to be clear, that wasn't an official review process. Google's decisions are ultimately made through their own systems and automated checks. But hearing that from someone inside Google made the situation for us feel even stranger. Because if nothing obvious looked wrong to us and nothing obvious looked wrong to them, then what exactly was Google seeing that we weren't? At this point, we had inventory sitting in a warehouse, capital tied up, a website ready to go, products ready to ship. But the one thing we needed to validate demand, which was our ability to advertise, was completely blocked. And that's when we stopped asking the wrong question. We've been asking, what the hell is wrong with the website? We started asking, what does Google actually see when it looks at our business? Not through our eyes, but through theirs. That question changed everything. Because for the first time, we stopped thinking at what was in front of us and started looking at what was behind it. The digital trail we left without even thinking about it. Once we started looking at the business through Google's eyes, a completely different picture emerged. From our perspective, Tuala was a brand new mattress company. Clean start, new brand, new product, new category. But Google wasn't seeing what we were seeing. Google wasn't just looking at the website. It was looking at everything connected to it. The domain history, the business profiles, the social accounts, the registered business details, the historical activity tied to every one of those assets. And that's when we started connecting the dots. Remember the old furniture website? The one we'd repurposed it into this mattress company. What we thought was a smart shortcut had actually been creating confusion in the background. Because from Google's perspective, this didn't look like a brand new mattress company. It looked like an existing business that had suddenly changed its identity. A different name, different category, different product, different story attached to the same digital foundation. And that wasn't the only signal. We also had multiple businesses registered to the same office address. Something we thought was completely normal. I mean, most business owners may run multiple. It's practical, it's efficient, but algorithms don't interpret information the way humans do. To us, those were separate businesses sharing an office. To an automated risk detection system, that was multiple entities operating from a single location with overlapping ownership, layered on top of a domain that had just changed its entire identity. None of these things individually seemed significant, but together they painted a picture we hadn't considered. And the more we looked at it, the clearer it became. We had been thinking like business owners. Google was thinking like a fraud detection system. Those are very different perspectives. And that's when the real lessons started to emerge. The suspension wasn't the problem. The suspension was a symptom. The real problem was that we had built an entire inventory position, committed real capital, shipped the container across the world, stored it in a warehouse before we had validated the infrastructure that the business depended on to generate revenue. We validated the product, we validated the supplier, we validated the logistics, but we never validated the platform. And because of that, we learned the lesson at the most expensive stage possible. After the inventory had arrived, after the capital had been deployed, after the clock had already started ticking on warehouse costs with zero revenue coming in. That's when we realized the order in which you do things really matters, and we just got it wrong. Eventually, we got through it, but not in the way we originally expected. When the suspension first happened, our entire focus was on fixing Google, get the account reinstated, run ads, start selling. That seemed like the only path forward. But after weeks turned into months, we started realizing that waiting for a single outcome was becoming a risk in itself. We had inventory sitting in a warehouse, capital tied up, and every day we spent waiting was another day the business wasn't moving. So we asked a different question. Instead of asking, how do we get Google working again? We started asking, how else can we sell these mattresses? That shift changed everything. We started exploring offline channels, leveraging relationships we already had, speaking to potential commercial customers, reaching out to contacts in industries we already knew. Eventually, we started supplying mattresses into hotels and accommodation projects through our existing network. It wasn't the path we planned for, but it taught me something I don't think I would have learned any other way. Never become dependent on a single channel, because the moment your business relies entirely on one platform, one traffic source, one supplier, or one customer, you've introduced a risk that's invisible until the moment it breaks. And by then, your options are already limited. Looking back, I'm actually quite grateful the suspension happened. Not because it was enjoyable. I mean, at the time, it was genuinely goddamn frustrating. But it forced us to think differently. It forced us to be resourceful, and it exposed weaknesses in the business that we may never have noticed otherwise. Before this experience, I thought risk in e-commerce was mostly about the product. Would the customers want it? Would the quality hold up? How could we source it at the right price? Those are all important questions. But what I learned is that some of the biggest risks in business don't sit inside the product at all. They sit in the infrastructure around it. Distribution, platform dependency, digital identity, operational sequencing. The order in which you build things determines how vulnerable you are when things go wrong. Today, if I was launching the same business again, I'll do almost everything in a different order. I'll validate the sales channel before committing to inventory. I'd register a fresh domain with no historical baggage. I'd separate each business entity with its own address. A PO box in Australia costs about $200 a year. I confirmed that Google Merchant Center, Meta Business Manager, and every ad platform was approved and active before placing a single production order. And I'll be much more careful about supplier timelines. A supplier wants production to move forward. That's their job. That's completely understandable on their behalf. But your job as a founder is to make sure the business is actually ready to receive what you're ordering. Not just the warehouse, the business. Because once the container lands, your options narrow very quickly. The other thing that stayed with me is that shortcuts aren't always what they seem. Reusing the old website felt efficient at the time. It felt logical, to us at least. It saved time and setup. But sometimes a faster path creates problems you don't discover until much later. And that's usually when the cost is highest. If there's one thing I want to leave with someone watching this video is this. We spent months validating the product, months validating the supplier, months validating the logistics, but we never properly validated the system that connected all of those things to the customer. And that's what nearly cost us the business. The suspension wasn't the real problem. The suspension was, in fact, the warning sign. The real problem happened much earlier. We just didn't know it at the time. I'm gonna keep documenting these situations as they come. If that's something of interest to you, the channel is below.